Sebring International Raceway was laid out on the concrete runways and taxiways of a World War II era B-17 bomber training airfield, and much of the track still runs on those old sections, replete with seam-filled concrete, further warped by weather and time. Even the somewhat newer asphalt sections have never been repaved, thus also filled with aging seams and bumps. It is simply brutal on man and machine. It is also a huge test of driver skill, one of the few tracks remaining whose character allows for drivers forcing others into errors, making the racing highly entertaining. And since the inception of the class, the high momentum, wonderfully balanced and compliant Spec Miatas have put on simply spectacular racing here. Hi folks, I'm Greg Creamer and welcome to the inaugural season of the Full Send Sims Esports iRacing Series and round 3 of the first season of Spec Miata. As always, I'm absolutely delighted to have Kyle Heyer with me on the call. And Kyle, for two comparatively smooth tracks, Sebring represents a vastly different challenge.
Something totally different this week, bouncing over the bumps of Sebring. 17 corners, Greg, some of them concrete, some of them asphalt, all of them challenging. A nice variety here as well, some point and shoot and some high-speed transient areas like BS is heading towards the tail end of the track, Le Mans curve and Sunset Bend. But all the corners here are challenging, and drivers have a big field tonight to navigate 35 cars. So qualifying right now, very important.
And Rowan Gill currently on top, but here, just a quick little note here. 3.65 miles, 17 turns. It's a long track, fair amount of distance to it. But Kyle, I think this track has about every conceivable form of corner in the world. It just doesn't have elevation. However, when you think about shock travel over the bumps, you add that up, that's some serious elevation. This place will tear you up.
It is known as 12 hours around here is known as being a lot rougher on cars than the 24 hours at Daytona, Greg. It just, in the real world, is tough on equipment. Here in the sim, it's going to be tough on you, both mentally and even physically, especially if you got a direct drive wheel. The forces that you'd feel in the car in the real world, very much represented even in the virtual world. All the curbs, all the bumps, all the changes in the pavement, all represented. And it's going to be a challenge to wrestle the cars around here tonight, especially that you don't have the seat of the pants feel that you'd get in a real car. So you'll be muscling your way through both of our 20-minute races tonight.
There's so many interesting little transitions between concrete to pavement to asphalt, and a lot of those little seams there are bumps, and if you get offline a little bit, everything gets exaggerated sometimes. It's really just an absolutely phenomenal racetrack, a hell of a test. And that's why in the Audi era of dominance in international sports car racing, they would come and run 36 hours straight at Sebring. And if they survive that, then they would say, okay, we're confident to go to the 24 hours of Le Mans. This place is truly legendary.
Here's Rowan Gill right at the top of the board right now in the number 174 car by 4/10 over Morgan Burkhardt, who's won every race so far this season, Greg. But Morgan might have some competition tonight, although right now he is crushing it in the point standings. 54 points over Nicholas Rasputos, 41, but it's tight for 4th place. Brian Horowitz and Cord Schmidt, and then again for 7th and again for 9th.
Yeah, really, really close stuff, as you said, behind those top two right now. Burkhardt and Rasputo have really been consistently strong, always up in the points. But Rowan Gill right now is throwing down some laps at 2:36.137. And that is just absolutely superb. He's got this place figured out. And, this track has some good traction events. It's got some really good overtaking. But one of my favorites here is you've got sections like 3, 4, 5 that really test the car's handling. Are you pushing? Are you loose? And you've also got these high-speed sweeping corners. One of my favorite sections of this track in anything is the double left that is Bishop Bend. It is just so fun to watch cars just absolutely fly through it here, right here. Coming up, that's the first part. You float out, you duck into the second part, and then head in to Jean de Bienne Bend. It's just a real treat here. And when you get down to the hairpin, or as Dorsey Schrader, when they made that change and took away the hairpin and put that little kink chicane in it, he called it the safety pin. You know, that is a great overtaking area. But again, there's some bumps on entry, and if you're offline in the wrong spot, it can unsettle things. This should really be interesting to see how this plays out.
So last week we were at Daytona, and we talked a lot about how these cars struggled to draft compared to the newer generation MX-5 here in iRacing. And I wanted to kind of bring to light, you know, we're running a spec setup here that is supposed to represent the NB generation Miata that's used in the Spec Miata series all over the country and really mostly SCCA competition. Now, the modifications to the setup include a 5% power reduction to this NC generation car and 250 kilograms of weight to help kind of simulate the softer suspension. Adding mass to this car kind of simulates that softer suspension of those previous cars, a little bit more pitch and dive. And so that really affected the way the cars could get out of the corners. But at Daytona, there's a couple areas, that bus stop in particular, that you have to carry so much speed, and it's at such a critical part of the lap. A little bit less of that here in terms of places that are going to penalize you for the entire lap, but there's a lot more little ones. So you see right now that Gill's up 4/10 on Morgan Burkhardt. That's 4/10, seems like a lot, but that's half a tenth, a quarter of a tenth in every corner, and that's not a lot.
Exactly right, but it's that streaming them together, isn't it? Stringing everything together that makes the difference. And I mean, in the first two rounds, we've been more used to seeing Morgan Burkhardt up by 3-4 tenths over everybody. He's at all four poles this far, and he sits second. But he's still another, 3 tenths separated from Nicholas Rice-Budo, then Beans Forster and Jordan Ricksagrini rounding out the top 5 right now. Jordan really showed some speed at Daytona, and it's good to see him right up in the sharp end of things here in this qualifying session. And looking forward, the guy that's kind of surprising me with where he's sitting right now is Skip Brock Jr. He's been an absolute front runner and just hasn't been able to dial that speed up as of yet. But that's one of those scenarios where, qualifying is one thing, racing is a whole different dynamic. And this place, like I said, you can really force mistakes here. And remember, these guys are dealing with gated shifters and the like here. And we've seen some engines on downshifts where the downshift's been missed. Things can happen here, and it just gets exaggerated on a track that's bumpy, particularly turn 17, which is also called Sunset Bend, and turn 1. And the thing that fascinates me is we look at turn 17 here, the different lines you run through here, but each line through here presents a different level of bumpiness. There's one that's generally the best. You get off of that, you might be quicker in, but you might hit some more unsettling bumps. The other thing to me that's fascinating, Kyle, is the exit of turn 1. That goes from a really wide, this wide front straight. When you turn into 1, the exit really tightens up. You can see it right here, how it comes back at you. And if you've missed your turn in, and right at the exit point is a honking big bump. And you've really got to be smart move there. Don't try and make that. Just stop and then gather it up, because if you hit that bump, you can wall it.
And iRacing, of course, has modeled the rubber being laid down by these race cars over time, and can't really get a good shot of it right now, but later in this event, we're going to see that you actually can kind of see it here towards the left side of the racetrack, driver's right. You can kind of see a little bit of a rubbered in line. That's from the extent of where the racing line is. That's kind of marbles collecting over there. You get off beyond that into the marbles, you're going to have a tough time clinging to the grip. And trust me, Greg, in the real world and in iRacing, this track will shred any tire you put on it. The concrete is rough and it is abrasive. And over the course of this race, we're going to see the racing line kind of darken in and kind of give us a pretty clear indication of where you can and can't go.
And what's really critical here is that rubber that gets put down actually smooths things out a little bit, because it fills in some of those crazy seams. So you can see that on that shot we had through turn 1. Every one of those lines crossing the track, perpendicular to the track, that's a seam. And every one of those in between, the concrete can warp a little bit. It's just a pretty diabolical place as we hop on board here for a look with Felix Borodati, I believe. And here's that run through Sunset Bend, way wide there, but that's how you run that now on the power hard coming out and onto the front straight. You have that wide approach, you sort of make a little bit of a turn, and then you start to feed it in. And when I was at Sebring for the SCCA Hoosier Super Tour event earlier in the year, late January, we saw a guy that put on an absolutely stunning run, went from 24th to 4th in the second Spec Miata race. Pretty talented driver in his own right, certainly, but man, did he lay down a couple of passes in that one. So it can happen.
So watching this is Felix Borodati that we were just on board with. Watch the bumps here through this final corner. Let's back it up just a little bit more as he comes around the corner. Watch that car pitch and heave and roll as it hits the bumps right up close to the wall. And this is a 1/4 speed, so he's coming through there a whole lot faster. And here it is at full speed now. Watch this car bounce around here all completely out of control.
Yeah, it just absolutely gets at you here. And you get off of that line he was on is generally the quicker, smoother line. It gets even worse. So, well, Rowan Gill put it on pole, Kyle, and I'll tell you what, he laid in one heck of a lap there. And as we're starting to grid up, just want to remind everybody this series sponsored by and conceived by Full Send Sims and owner Cord Schmidt. And Full Send Sims are builders of custom turnkey racing simulators with both real-world racing and simulation training applications. We also want to remind everybody that we have some associate presenting sponsors, 3P Logistics, owner Frank Rodriguez, logistical support for you, your family, and your race car, tailored trackside support as well, and Final Turn Motorsports, owned by Rob Greenwood. It's a full-service prep shop and trackside support, dyno tuning, Miata tranny builder. They do it all. And a couple of quick announcements here. One, we were talking about earlier in the year that the award for third place in the final points along with a trophy was going to be announced later. Well, it's been announced, and it's a choice of an 8 pattern or sequential shifter or a 2-year iRacing paid subscription. So that is pretty darn cool. So we are just getting really close to getting underway with our first race.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is the short pace lap here, so we're not going to get a lot of opportunity. We're just going to scroll the starting lineup, I think, this time, because the pace lap is going to take, I don't know, all of 30 seconds before they are taking the green. And this is probably because this is done in the heat racing style format here, Greg. So what this means is that the pace lap here takes 3 to 4 minutes to complete. So this is really just speeding up the evening. But there's your front row, Rowan Gill on pole. He actually told us here in the YouTube chat that he went from 26 to 6 in the Hoosier Super Tour Spec Miata Race 2, along with Danny Staines. So he knows how to get it done in the real world, too.
Yeah, he and Danny sort of teamed up and ran through that field. Danny, as we talked about, 24th to 4th. So it can be done. There's no question about that as we're taking a look at that lineup. Also want to remind everybody that we are also going to be having driver schools that they hold, but also they have introduced some one-on-one training sessions. We'll talk more about that. So if you're struggling a little bit, don't give up hope. You can learn from some of these absolute front runners. All right, field is underway. Again, this very short pace lap, if you will. And the pace car makes its way quickly out. The field going to make its way onto this long front pit straight. Remember, folks, when you turn into turn 1, you don't see the exit. It's bumpy. It bottlenecks. You've got to be well placed and prepared. And Rowan Gill on the inside with Morgan Burkhart. We're green. Here we go. Racing. Look at that move down to the inside by Ray Sputo, trying to make something happen early. And Beans Forster up on the outside. Everybody's trying to figure out where to go. Contact in the back. Couple cars involved. Everybody else doing a beautiful job. And here we go. 3, 4, 5 abreast down into turn 1. So far, no big issues. Big, wide, and move and slide there. But again, absolutely glorious. And it looks like Gill is hanging on to it, but man, is he under massive pressure.
Yeah, great run down to turn 1. Contact with the teammates, right? Sputo and Burkhart bounce off each other. Beans Forster sees it all at the windshield. Rowan Gill has it all in the mirror here as they head under the bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's Jordan Rick-Sagrini who had a nice start and moved up a position as well as they come out of the very tricky 3, 4, 5 down through what they call Big Bend. And here we go, first time into this really tricky, hard-braking hairpin overtaking area. But it's also crucial to get out of here well, Kyle, isn't it? Because you've got another long run up to Cunningham.
Yeah, turn 10, that's another great passing opportunity there. So far, so good through turn 10. I think everyone got through there okay. The couple drivers that had some incidents are back rolling again. I think Felix Borodati was one of them. Wayne Buttermore might have been another. But other than that, we are clean and green here through the first couple of corners. But Rowan Gill leads through Cunningham. And now he's got just Burkhart separating themselves out. Sputo, Forster, and Rick Sagrini, the rest of the top 5.
through Collier Curve, now into the ever-crucial Tower Corner. And you've got to get on the throttle so early here because it's another long run down to that Bishop Bend double left into Jean de Bienne. And it was named after an old water tower that used to be there. And here we go down into, that's the first of the double lefts there. Now into the second one and setting up for Jean de Bienne. And these two guys have indeed made a little bit of a break over Rice-Puto and the rest of the field. Beans and Jordan Rixagrini, but a lot of company behind them. The 72 of Butler, the 9 of Morrow, and the 45.
Burkhardt got hit with a slowdown here.
Oh boy.
I think he cut Le Mans curve here, and it's going to cost him several positions and almost contact there, as looks like that's the 998 of Caleb Patry working his way through. This is one of those areas here in iRacing that can get you in trouble here, Greg. We'll go back and have a look. We got to go back a little bit further to catch this, but through the Le Mans curve right here at the apex. Oh, it was actually before this, I think.
Before that, yeah. I think it may have been right there.
Yep. Got the center line up over the inside of the curb, and that will get you a slowdown. It will push Burkhardt back to 7th.
Well, this is interesting ground right now here for Morgan, as he's usually been right up in the front. He's run second a few times, but right up at the front. Now he's going to have to work his way through this field. He's got the speed, and we'll see what he's going to be able to do with it here as they come through turn 1. He got this just little jog to the right now. Big overtaking opportunity, and down to the inside, picks up 1 spot into turn 3.
He's won every race so far this season, every heat. This would be the first that he couldn't win if he doesn't get back to the front. He's got Rowan Gill and Rice-Puto trying to separate themselves from the field. Here's Jamison Huffman in the 29, chasing Skip Brock Jr. for 10th.
That's an interesting looking graphics package on that number 29. Absolutely love it. Love the creativity here as the field heading down into the hairpin. Big look there by the number 45, but realized, yeah, that's maybe not going to happen right now. That was Brennan Huron.
Started 8th, he's down to 12th, so he's dropped a couple of spots in the early running here, but might just be a late bloomer in terms of the picking up the speed and just kind of getting used to the racecraft here at Sebring. Again, this car drives so different than what you'd be used to from the normal NC Miata unmodified. Here is Michael Baroffi's number 314. He's had a loop down here heading into the hairpin, I believe. Oh, a little too hot.
A little bit of contact there. I think that's Caleb Pocock he got into, and the back end of that car already had a wrinkle in it, so tough start for him as they've gathered up. Nope, there's Caleb. It wasn't, that was the Camel GT kind of color scheme on the car, but maybe this is the guy that, maybe Caleb got into the other driver.
Nice
with
looking
that
livery.
Big wrinkle on the nose. Lovely livery, yep.
A nice
Miller
shine
High
to
Life.
it, yep. Has a good
We've seen similar liveries to that elsewhere, haven't we?
We certainly have. Here's
good look
Rixagrini.
there, yeah. He's doing a beautiful job here. Burkhardt did get back around him, so Burkhardt's back into the top 5, right in front of Rixagrini here. But he's really doing a nice job, Jordan is here. That looks like a nice move there by Morrow, or Butler slipping through on Morrow as well.
Now for Burkhardt, if you're going to make a mistake, make it at a lap 1's a pretty good time to make it because you have time to recover from it, and now you've learned that's where the limit is. I can't step over that line again. So that's good for Burkhardt to know. He's back up to 5th after falling to 8th, and he didn't lose the leader in the process. Gill has still got his hands full with Rice-Puto, but Beans Forster now coming into the mix for 2nd place.
Boy, isn't he tucked right in behind Rice-Puto here as they head down into this tricky turn 1. You see how close to the wall you have to run there, and that really, if you don't get that right, if you turn in early, you're just too fast. As you start to exit the turn, when it comes back at you, you lose all your momentum. If you turn in late, you just leave a wide open gap for somebody to dive down inside of and take a spot away. So turn 1, I think, is one of the trickier corners on the planet, to be honest with you.
It really is. And actually, Sunset Bend has a similar field, but the opposite cornering direction. You're going right in Sunset Bend, but you're kind of flinging it right where the wall ends and then letting the car kind of wash out and then turning it in tight and taking a variety of different lines depending on how much your brain can handle being rattled in its skull. There's definitely a difference in the line and how rough it is in the real world and in iRacing.
Look at this move by Boley up and tried to get up and underneath Huron. Got the car placed there as they are working their way through the hairpin, I believe, but wasn't, or No, that was into Collier, wasn't it?
That was out of the hairpin and heading now down towards Cunningham.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Boley tucks back in line. That's for 11th. Haran in 10th. Skip Brock Jr. in 9th. And then other battles happening a little deeper in the field. Carlos Mendana and Andrew Wozencroft. This 80 car, by the way, I think started pretty deep in the field. Well, 24th to 23rd, so one spot up.
And late in the going, we had a 36th entry come in, so we've got 36 cars out there. That's a heck of a field.
Oh, big dive from Mendana into tower turn and took a lunge at him, but looks like David Carrillo's going to get him back on exit with a very damaged 95 car. That thing has seen some shelling in the back.
Yeah, David Carrillo, or is that Levi Canup too?
It's 95 of Carrillo.
Yep.
And then Wozencroft in the 80 that just put himself in the middle of both those cars.
Gotcha,
and for second place, look at this, down the backstretch heading into Sunset Bend. Here comes Rice Sputo on Gill, but also defending from Forster.
And Rice Sputo able to hang on to it here, but I'll tell you right now, Beans has dialed it up a little bit. And for all the pace he had in qualifying by 4/10, Rowan Gill cannot shake these two drivers here. They are starting to open a margin up. And, even back to right now to Caleb Patry at 5th, it's not that huge a gap. Look at this move, down to the inside. Here comes Rice Sputo, got the nose ahead, but can he keep it there? You can see Gill using every piece of track on the exit, and that gave him just enough momentum to be able to hang on to the lead. And I think right there, maybe Beans Forster was Rowan Gill's best friend because he kept Rice Sputo honest.
Well, these three have been kind of battling each other nose to tail. They've been so distracted that they've let Burkhardt rejoin the race here from 8th back up to 4th. So Morgan has kind of undone the sins of lap 1 and now rides right behind these front three as they jockey for position down into the hairpin.
And here we go again. Rice Sputo showing the nose. Down into the hairpin, deep onto the brakes. Can he hang on at the exit? Oh, right there you can see Gill tried to do the counter punch. There was contact, and that has allowed that Beans was able to get down to the inside of both of them. I think we've got a new leader in Beans Forster.
Beans Forster to the top spot, past Rice Sputo, past Gill. I think Rice Sputo just overshot a little bit, held up Gill, slid across the nose. Gill got into the back of him, and now Forster was able to slide through. Morgan Burkhardt just a spectator from 4th here, and I think he's going to join the party here momentarily.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'm impressed with Patry in that 5th spot, the 998. Haven't had a lot of familiarity with him, and he is sticking with some awfully fast guys. And I'll tell you what, that was an absolutely brilliant move by Beans Forster, just reading what was unfolding, recognizing that Gill was going to try the counter punch as he comes down to the inside. Watch this now. Right there, Kyle, is going to be the tap. Boom.
And then just throttled up, got through the gears, and managed to muscle his way by. A little bit of paint trading there as they worked their way through.
That was a little pinballing, wasn't it, for Owen Gill, bouncing between Forster and Rice Sputo. But a nice job by Beans out in front.
And now Rice Sputo going defensive here on Gill, and these guys are beginning to battle amongst themselves. Forster likes to see this in the rearview mirror, but Gill gives a big shove to Rice Sputo. He knows how to play the game. He's going to shove Rice Sputo down the back straightaway, and they're going to pick up a couple miles an hour extra on Forster with that bump draft.
Oh, and right there, Rice Sputo looked like he had floated a little wide, but was able to get it back down to the apex. And you can see Rowan Gill even a little bit more snug to the inside right there. And you can see right behind him, the number 40, Burkhardt, hit that exit bump. And man, that car unloaded for just a second, but he held on to it. And here we go. A look by Rice Sputo once again. Down into turn 1. Rice Sputo, Forster, side by side. And by the time they get to the apex, Rice Sputo is through. But here comes Gill. Takes a look, has to tuck back. Now, shows the nose again. Might be going for second here.
Into turn 3, up over the curb. Rowan Gill side by side. They're banging doors again. Burkhardt following still in 4th and through turn 5 now, Greg.
Gill got him. He's up into second once again with Forster back into 3rd. Man, from the lead to 3rd that fast with Burkhardt and Patry just watching it all unfold. And that actually gave Rice Sputo, that little side-by-side behind him, a little bit of a margin here he'll be very thankful for. And look at this, Patry coming after him. after Burkhardt back there, but Burkhardt just literally out-deeps him down into the hairpin.
So Rice-Budo, Gill, Forster, Burkhardt, Patry, your top 5 as it stands. They've kind of been playing revolving door here up at the front of the field. Briefly, let's check back on a battle back here for 17th. Max Bankin and Jorge Ortiz, who we've seen in other sports car competition, the grid life side of things in the past. And I was about to mention Patry as well, as now Burkhardt gets by Forster at Cunningham. We've seen Patry in the DC region SCCA Virtual Racing League, so he's very familiar with iRacing, very familiar with this car, just jumping in over on the FSS esports side of things and really showing what he's got to handle here tonight.
Yeah, he's just been impressive all season long. And, you know, for those of you who are going, how am I? Well, let's get back to this good little scrap here. 32 of Skip Brock Jr. trying to make up some ground, working on Jordan Butler. Through Bishop Bend, the first left. Here's the second one. Now into Jean de Bienne. And if everything goes to plan, he should be able to slide through. But look at that. Beautiful piece of driving by Jordan Butler, hanging in around the outside and not cutting the track. So that was fantastic.
Well executed there for second place. Burkhardt's through on Rice-Budo and now sets his sights on Rowan Gill.
They are after it here, and I'll tell you what, Morgan Burkhardt showing what we saw at that Hoosier Super Tour event. You can come through the field, and we still have about 12 minutes of racing left, so a lot to be decided here. And one thing we have seen already here, Kyle, is you know, you can go from the lead to fourth in a huge hurry at this track. And in the background, Rick Greeny sticking right with it here, sitting in that blue 108 in the 6th spot. And here we go, Gill down to the inside of Burkhardt, getting back into the lead. Burkhardt had it briefly. Gill takes it right back. Rice-Budo and Forster, 3rd and 4th right now. Patry just sitting back going, man, I'm not sure I even want to get up into this mess.
I heard Burkhardt's tires screaming at him through turn 1. He was right on the limit and had a little bit of understeer trailing Rowan Gill through 1.
Boy, I'll tell you, Gill really dropped his tires on the exit of 3 on the backside of that curb. And you got to be a little careful with that because of the auto penalty, right, that iRacing can throw in if they deem it a cut. Here comes Burkhardt.
Yeah, generally, if you keep the center line over a curb, you're in good shape, but you can get pretty greedy, especially through the last couple corners. Big time understeer through 7 for Burkhardt.
I think he may have scorched his tires. You said you heard him chirping and squealing, and on that charge back up to the pack, he may have overheated those babies.
The tire temperature is a challenge just to keep in check here. A 25-minute race is about 10 laps here. 125-degree track temperatures, though, Greg, so your tires already don't have a lot of grip to work with, and especially when they're changing grip from surface to surface, it can be hard to gauge how much grip you've got in a particular corner.
I think you bring up a really good point there. I mean, this track has so many different surfaces. Each one of them has, you know, a different level of base grip, and then as you throw in those temperature changes and how the darker pavement will hold heat more than the lighter concrete and the like, it is really a crapshoot sometimes every time you get into a corner when you're dealing with this level of heat.
And iRacing also models the thickness of the pavement, which includes the several foot thick concrete. So even the thickness of the pavement and the material underneath it and the temperature loss and gain is simulated as well. So it's just another thing to consider. You're not necessarily aware of that kind of thing as a driver, but it affects the way the car grips to the road. So the concrete and asphalt, very different surfaces here in iRacing.
I tell you, Morgan Burkhardt got a better run through the Lamont curve. See him tucked right in behind Gill. We'll see if he wants to pop to the lead or whether he just wants to push Gill and try and open up a little bit of a gap back to Rice-Budo and the rest. I think that was his plan, but Rice-Budo not falling for it. And I'll tell you what, Rick Greeny now, that battle between Brock and Butler has drawn them right onto the back of the blue 108 for 6th.
And Skip Brock Jr. tucks underneath both of them in Sunset Bend. A little bit of a wide line for the 108 and for the 72. And right out to the tire bundles there at the exit at turn 17. That you couldn't do that in iRacing up until about a month ago, Greg, with the Season 1 build for 2023. That was one of the things they did. They redid Sebring and put the pavement in over there, the concrete. It was grass. It's now concrete. Fair play now, but for 12, 15 years here at iRacing, you couldn't use that. Big slides out of 1.
Yeah, that was first Rick Greeny, and then right behind Skip Brock, Jordan Butler dropped almost all 4 off and was able to save it. You don't get away with those that often here. Here we go, down through a very important turn number 5. And heading down, problem here for Deacon Greenfield, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly what happened. It was nose to tail with the 29 into turn 1. And, oh, that was a motor. I heard it go.
Yeah.
And grenaded.
Yeah, did that downshift wrong, probably. Like I told you, I mean, that happens in a lot. You know, we've seen it happen in the other events so far, but this track, even more prone to it. Oh, Rick Segrini runs a little bit wide. Oh, that's Court Schmidt.
Yep, well, it's the 172 car, and Boley up underneath them.
Yep, nice move. Read that beautifully. Did Boley in the 33.
Whoa.
Oh, but Court just absolutely keeps her pin, comes right back up the inside.
Steve Ray in trail. That's the 14th place car, the 111. And he's running exactly where he started after about 20 minutes of driving.
And did you see right behind Court there as we were on board with the car that was chasing him, just that 33 of Boley, how the car unsettled on the brakes, hitting the bump going into Cunningham. That's what I'm talking about. And if you get off of the faster line, everything can get a bit exaggerated. And that's given Court a little bit of room. And unfortunately, Steve Ray coming up behind now on Boley.
This car just kind of teaches you weight transfer, right? And you throw in the high temperatures, you throw in the high tire temps and the tire wear at this stage of the race. It's going to be a particular challenge. Up the road, though, you see Skip Brock Jr. going defensive, and Rick Segrini and Butler side by side again.
Absolutely, great stuff. And Brennan Horan, who we've been watching, has fought his way up and joined this group. So that's basically 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, covered by the proverbial blanket here. And Horan really tight to the inside. And the thing is, you can get a good run sometimes, but then this happens. There's not a lot you can do with it, and you can get a little bit trapped. And that now he has to breathe. And in these cars, you don't want to give up a thing at this point. I've got to just give a shout out to Steve Ray. That is in the 111, back a little bit, setting at 13th. If we get another shot of that, look at that graphic package with the chrome design he's put on it. That's stunning.
Sparkling in the Sebring sun.
Yes, it is.
Certainly looks.
Yes, it is.
Looks the part. Here's Rick Segrini and Butler, and they're still side by side into turn 5. They have not given this battle up just yet.
And Horan's gone through on Butler now and picked up the 8th spot. But for how long? That's going to be the question here. As Butler working the outside, though, of Big Bend. That's the longer way around and generally gives the guy you're trying to pass the inside line into the hairpin. But look at the speed that Butler carries in, but he overshoots. Horan's going to square up, try and come down underneath. But a beautiful move there by Butler, who held onto it, but still scrubs some speed. And Horan now has the inside line through that quick little right-left bend that used to be the little bit tighter Fangio chicane. They're still side by side, heading up into Cunningham, and Horan's got that inside line. But Butler is not just going to give it to him. Kyle, side by side still.
He braked a full marker later and still couldn't clear the 45 at the exit of Cunningham. They're still door to door. How do you not wear the mirror paint out getting this close together? This is phenomenal. Into tower turn now. Butler, if he's wise here, he'll tuck in and then try to exit later with more throttle. Didn't get quite the run I thought he was going to get, but still a valiant effort there. And up front, by the way, we're back fighting again. Burkhardt and Gill, 4.5 minutes to go, and all 5 of those front runners are still right on top of each other.
And they just cannot shake. Rasputo and Patry now has moved around Beans Forster. He is having one heck of a run. There he is in the more solid red of the cars here. But this top 5 group, one, they've opened up a gap of about 6.5 seconds back to the rest of the field. But these 5, there's nothing between them. I'm not sure there's room for a piece of paper right now between Gill and Burkhardt. Great stuff.
If there was a piece of paper between them, it'd be a little bit thinner than it was than before you put it there.
Yeah, it's shredded at this stage. Phenomenal stuff. As you said, just under 4 minutes to go. And Beans Forster just back, and Beans is just sort of surveying things going, what, if anything, am I going to be able to do here?
I think I'd like to be a spectator in P5 right now because we know that this is going to get pretty wild. We have about 2 laps of racing left, so if I'm Beans Forster, I like where I'm at. I'm just going to watch these guys and hopefully kind of drive through the smoke when it all goes off.
Well, and interesting, Gill and Burkhardt, they continue to run line astern really, really close to each other, and they cannot shake Rice Budo. So, and right now, as a matter of fact, there's about a car length that's opened up between Gill and Burkhardt. That's going to go away, I'm sure, in a hurry. But no matter what they do, they haven't really been racing each other. And you know Burkhardt's been pushing a little bit. Ooh, big, beautiful move there. That's the number 29 again, Huffman. And he and Morrow, along with Rickson Greeny, are having one heck of a scrap.
That's Court Schmidt again in the 172.
Schmidt again.
Yeah,
he's fought his way up again a little bit farther. Yeah, it is. That's going to get me all season.
It sure is. 13th up to 12th, and a little bit of dramas in between. A little bump draft there down into turn 7. Late on the brakes for Huffman. He might have outbraked himself, though, and Court Schmidt's going to size them both up here on the exit.
Tried to get a run on Morrow. Now they're side by side. Court, can he make a... and he just can't do anything with it. He definitely had the run. He's chosen his partner here with Morrow. Oh,
little
bit of a feint there. And still, nobody giving any ground. Morrow's definitely got the advantage here. Court going to try the rim shot around the outside.
It might work
got
for him here.
Nose inside, Kyle.
If he could just carry some good speed here into tower turn and just roll the outside, he actually might be able to complete this pass if he doesn't give it up. Into tower turn on the outside of Morrow. Ran a little bit wide up into the marbles, and that will drop a spot or two.
And you can see Morrow definitely brake before Court did because he was pinched to the inside. But Court left it just a little bit too late. But, well, I'll tell you what, these two, a gap. For a minute, I thought Court might try and shoot the gap there. This is spectacular stuff, folks, and we're talking about battling right now for 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Minute 30 left in this race. They'll be coming to the white flag this time, but this battle will continue. So will the one for the lead in the background. There goes Rice Budo past Patry in the 998. Beans Forster to the inside for 4th, and everyone's fighting to be 3rd place now, Greg, because that's going to be the catbird seat on this final lap.
Yeah, and that may have given that little break to Gill and Burkhardt right now, that little bit of battling at this stage. And you can see Patry got wide, went way offline, and that definitely cost him and allowed those other two to slip through and pick up those spots. Now, obviously, Rice Budo and Forster, they've just got to try and catch these guys. And we have, and a big off by Gill. Gathers it up, but that's going to hurt his momentum. Burkhardt couldn't do much with it.
Gill kept the foot in it.
There's traffic coming up too, Kyle.
There's traffic. It shouldn't be a huge issue here at Sebring, but it could be a factor. Gill just kept his foot in it through turn 1. Yeah. You can really easily get loose and crash in the grass here in iRacing, but Gill kept the foot in, kept the controls straight, and managed to drive out of it and not lose a spot. There's that lap traffic up the road. That's the 89 car, I believe.
Yep, looks like.
But turn 7 here for the final time.
There's a lot of Sebrings really wide, but there are some spots that are a little bit more narrow, and if you catch one of these cars there, that's where it could really be an issue. All right, up through Fangio, making their way up toward Cunningham. When is Burkhardt, if at any point, going to make the move? He's got to do it somewhere, Kyle, where it's not going to hurt his momentum.
Yeah, he's playing the game right now, Greg, and I just worry about this because this car doesn't have quite the draft advantage that the newer car has. So I just wonder if waiting to the last straightaway before Sunset Bend is too long, because if you mess up turn 16, you won't get another shot at it, Greg. They're coming back to the checkers this time. Forster off course, but he gets it back on and slots himself back and forth.
Yeah, and it looks, though, like Rice Budo maybe didn't quite get the run through that sequence of corners. His car's sliding quite a bit, and these two have broken clear a little bit. This could be mano-a-mano now.
Burkhardt missed a downshift there. He got it in gear, but he was a neutral a little too long, lost some ground, but he's sizing him up for turn 16 exit. He's a little far back, Greg, but the draft is all that's left he's got.
All right, let's see what he can do here. Didn't get the run out of there, as you said, because of that missed gear. I don't think they have to worry at this stage about Rice Budo, Forster, or Patry. It's mano-a-mano for the win, and it's going to take something really special by Burkhardt. He's got to drive, he's got to tow, swings it into Sunset for the last time. going for the over-under. Gill floats out wide. Down to the inside comes Burkhardt. They're side by side coming out. This is all momentum. Forster sits in third. It is a drag race to the line. Who's going to get it? Look at this, Burkhardt.
Man.
Oh.
Holy cow, 0.003 of a second is the win margin. 0.003 of a second.
Oh.
Are you kidding me?
That's unbelievable. And I said Burkhardt because I was looking at where the checkered flag line ended. But it wasn't Burkhardt who got to the checkered flag start first there. Unbelievable.
That we'll have to look at a replay of that a whole bunch of times. Don't worry, we've marked that. We'll come back to it. Some other battles still coming to the stripe. Here's Mandana and Wozencroft. Similar battle here. Coming to the checkers for 16th place. Mandana had it. Wozencroft takes it by a 10th at the line.
That one a little bit more clear cut, obviously, but just some phenomenal throughout the pack.
That was fun. Pocock and Greenfield, they've sorted their battle out. There's no other immediate battles coming back to the checker, so let's take a moment and go back and look at that last move. That was excellently played by Morgan Burkhardt, but it just wasn't quite enough.
And you can just see there, there it is.
Oh, man.
Unbelievable. That's a couple of inches, folks.
I don't even know how to get a better look at it than that. That is so cool. Let's go back and look at it here in slow motion as they come through the final corner. Watch that crossover. You can see the tire marks he left. Dives down the inside of Gill right here. Tucks in. I think they make a little bit of contact right at the apex there, but all fair and clear. They come out still side by side as they went in. Gill washes out, but he did a great job defending this. Didn't crash himself in the process. And then they come back to the checkers mirror to mirror.
Yeah, and I mean, he did everything he could to pinch Burkhardt and try and slow that momentum down just a little bit. And here we go. Checker, boom.
That's awesome.
Unbelievable.
I haven't seen a Sebring finish like that in a long time, sim or reality. But look at this again from onboard Burkhardt. Well played by both.
I don't think there was a touch, man.
I think you're right. Going back through it, I didn't actually hear it.
No, I think it was as clean as could be. Two racers doing an absolutely spectacular job of giving each other just enough room. And the great drivers can say, I can deal with that.
That was awesome. Here's a look at your race results. I don't even have my win margin go down to the 1,000th because it's not typical that we see it go down to the 1,000th in road racing, but 0.0004 was the unofficial win margin for Rowan Gill, Beans Forster, Rice Sputo, and Patry rounding out the rest of your top five, Greg. Skip Brock Jr., we're going to lose the results here in a moment, but that was fantastic stuff.
Yeah, Rick Sagrini in 6th, Haran 7th. Just a wonderful run here. So now we reset for the second of the doubleheader races here. And I just want to remind everybody, we were talking earlier about the trophies and the like. P1 through P3 at the end of the season all get trophies. But the other rewards, P1 gets a direct drive wheelbase. P2 will get a set of load cell pedals. They just announced the third award, as I mentioned, either a choice of an H-pattern sequential shifter or a 2-year iRacing paid subscription. And then here's the thing, all admins and instructors are not eligible for trophies, are eligible for trophies, but not for the sim hardware prizes. So drivers below P1, 2, and 3 could still win sim hardware. So don't give up. There's also no repeat winners for hardware. So if you stay around for the other 2 seasons that are going to be coming up this year, if you're outside, you can still win some of those really cool awards. And I do want to make note that a really nice development has been announced here. And it's basically that Full Send Sims now offering one-on-one instructional sessions. You can book them at their website, fullsendsims.com. And along with Ben Beans Forster, and remember, he's up there in the points right now in the top 3, so he won't be eligible for any of those hardware prizes. And Konrad Chachik, joining them mid-season is Morgan Burkhardt, the guy who was just put on a display and was so impressive in this one as well. He's joined as an instructor. Because he's joined in the middle of a season, he will be eligible in this season for the hardware, but if he stays as an instructor after that, he won't be. So keep that in mind. Just because you're not in the top 3 right now doesn't mean you're not going to get some of that hardware. And then the next FSS Racing 101 Drivers School has been scheduled Friday, February 10th 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And it will be driving these Spec Miatas at Road Atlanta, which ironically is the same track that we'll be racing at that following week. All league members are free to join the class, and it's really highly encouraged for any of you who might be a bit significantly off the pace or have to, is the nice way that the FSS put it, bang out a few too many fenders from previous races. Might not be a bad idea to take it. Primary topics for that lesson will be incident avoidance and racecraft. So, do that driver school, and if you want some really good one-on-one, you could get instruction from, as I said, Morgan Burkhart now, or Beans Forrester, or Conrad Chachik. So check that out. Some really, really wonderful opportunities.
I think it's great to be using the simulator as a driver training platform and using it as an instructor platform, Greg. Here's a thing that you can do that you can't do in the real world is hit a reset button, and which is very unique. And actually, for those that were watching the Global MX-5 Series race a couple of weeks ago at Daytona, one of the drivers that was involved in a big wreck there towards the end, that was Glenn McGee. Well, big iRacer, had some iRacing sponsorship on that car. He's had that there for a while, and we're kind of joking on Twitter because he unfortunately got injured in that crash. We kind of joked about not having a reset button in the real world, but that's really the advantage of the sim. You have a hard time breaking your wrist in iRacing, thankfully, but hopefully Glenn gets a quick recovery, but there is really a lot of use for simulators in that context, and I think it's really cool that FSS is all on top of that already.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, if you've got, as you were saying, these force feedback wheels, so you feel everything here. Danny Stain said one of the things that having one of these full send sims has really kept front and center of his mind is if you have an off, let go of the wheel. And he said that's just been further sort of pounded into his head because of these full send sims and other sims and sim training. So it's a phenomenal opportunity. And with full send, they also offer real world trackside sim rentals and driver instruction training at the same track you might be racing on. And you can also hire them for corporate and private event rentals in Central Florida area and even beyond. But I'll tell you what, if you're at a track and full send is there, you can actually get sim time. There's 2 sims. You can get your instructor to come in and either race against you or just stand behind you and observe with full headset communications. It's really remarkable what they're capable of.
Yeah, it's awesome that they're taking advantage of what the simulator is really good for, and that is kind of getting the basics down, learning where the track goes, but also kind of honing in your skills. And especially if you've got the similar platform in the sim as you do in the real world. If you drive a Miata in particular, this is a particularly good series to be driving in right now, kind of reinforcing the good habits and kind of making sure that you remember not to do the bad ones. Greg, warm-up here is complete for our second race of the evening, so in just a moment, we're going to be headed down to the grid again, and we'll be right back thrust into the action. And the front 5, they put on a heck of a show, and we're going to get to do it all over again.
I can't wait. I mean, that whole battle at the top 5 and then that group 6th to 9th and then the group behind them was just superb. But, man, that run to the finish between those 2 up front, Gill and Burkhart, was absolutely staggering. One more reminder about 3P Logistics, one of our presenting sponsors. They also do race car storage, maintenance, repair, and full transportation. And for Final Turn Motorsports, they actually will, if you're pretty new to the sport, they will help you with your driver development from licensing right through every stratus and every step right into pro racing. Some wonderful support we're getting here. And, of course, a huge thanks to Full Send Sims for putting this all on. And we are getting this grid set up. And I don't think we lost a car in that first one. We should have the full 36 with it, shouldn't we?
We sure do. 36, that's Joe Camilleri at the way back of the pack there. Look at all those Mazdas lined up so nicely.
Oh, I love that. What a shot. How cool is that?
Bring that all the way back here. There you go, as they're all stacked up. That's 18 rows of Mazda MX-5s. The starting lineup on the left-hand side of the screen. Gill, Burkhart, Forster, Patry, Brock, your top 5. Then Rick Sangrini, Oran, Butler, Huffman, and Morrow, the rest of your top 10. Greg, time to go racing again. 25 minutes up on the board, and we'll probably get a rehash of what we saw earlier.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why the Rice Pudo is so far back in that. But we'll see how things settle out here as we are coming for the start. Green! We are green once again. The field pans out. A huge off in the background.
Ricardo Ray, but we're 4 abreast heading into turn 1, Greg.
That did not take long here. 5-6 abreast now. Oh, got to be really, really careful here. Here's where it bottlenecks up. Track tightens up. Couple of big wide swings. Everybody looks to be giving people room. Ooh, big lurid slide there. Is he going to come across and collect other cars? Stayed out of the way at this stage. Wow, unbelievable. And Burkhardt got around Gill into the lead.
That was Charles Boley that lost at the exit of turn 1. So just 2 cars with some big slides in the early moments of this race. Otherwise, through turns 1 and 5 without any other contact. But Morgan Burkhardt wrestled away the lead. Remember how he lost it in race 1? Was cutting it. Actually, he was second at the time, but it was cutting the S turns leading up to Le Mans curve. That's what got him in trouble. Now into turn 7, another trouble spot here on the opening laps.
Oh, somebody really coming in with a huge head of steam. And there it was. You can see, I don't know that there was contact. I think that both cars just got in too hot, and the outside one looped it. Right there, that is the number 56. That's Felix Borodati, I believe.
Yep.
And he has gathered it up and continues, but now way, way back.
31st now, big time damage. We'll go back and look at that one later. Look at this mess. This is for about 18th spot into turn 10.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the Cunningham corner, you come into it from such speed, you brake so late, sweep through the Collier curve here, and now up into Tower. And, early on the break, the 11 there had a pretty good run, Bankin did, and then just really shorted up on the brakes. Somebody locking up into Tower, but looks like everybody, contact in the back there as well. And looks like either a penalty or some damage for Ray.
These 2 locking horns. That's the 11 of Levi Knupp and the 31 of Joe Camilleri, who started last up to 29th already and has traded some door paint for some positions up to P29.
Ooh, Knupp, nice move down to the inside there, heading into Jean de Bienne, named, of course, after the legendary French endurance racer Olivier Jean de Bienne. One of the things I love about this track is the corners, with the exception of, say, Tower Turn, which is named after a landmark, are named after some of North America and the world's most legendary endurance racers. You gotta love that.
Got a really rich history when it comes to racing here in North America, and this is one of the older tracks that's seen a lot of layout changes over the decades, but racing has been here since the 1950s, Greg, in a variety of different forms. But this is just one of those places that's known internationally for being one of the premier road racing circuits. Rick Cingrani off course at turn 1.
Yep, and having Skip Brock just sort of targeted fixation running wide with him. And you're absolutely right. I mean, first racer was run in 1950, and then a few years later came the first 12-hour race. And people tend to forget, 1959, this was the home of the first ever United States Formula One Grand Prix. It was only here for a year before it went to Riverside and eventually to Watkins Glen. And one of the first ever Trans Am races was run right here. So pretty interesting history for this place, to be sure. And you can see why it provides some absolutely staggeringly good racing here. As Huffman taking a look at Court Schmidt and sneaks through, picks that spot up, but overshot a little bit, and I think Court got the better run out of the hairpin. Wanted to dive to the inside and realized that even though he didn't have the run, Huffman covered it beautifully. Now Court trying to figure a way through. He's got the speed. Huffman says, all right, I'll give you the outside. Do you think you can make that work? Court says, bit too early to be trying that up into Cunningham.
Oh, a little understeer on corner exit, had to lift, got up on top of the curbing here. That's one of the things we talked so much about the surface, Greg, in terms of how upsetting it can be to the chassis, but the curbing around here, some of it is ancient, some of it is new, some of it's low, some of it's high, and if you are not really set up to take curbing in a particular corner or with a particular chassis, it can be shocking to drill it. It can lift the car up off the ground, send it 2 wheels in the air. In some places like here, it's newer and you can kind of hook it and use it to your advantage.
Yeah, and you're right. You look at some of the sections of track, the curbing is almost dead flat, like you would have on a motorcycle racing track, like Laguna, for instance. In other sections, as you said, the curbs are really, really abrupt and steep. So, it's the little nuance that you have to have around here like that. Remember, this isn't, 10, 12 turns, it's 17. So you have to have a pretty good understanding of every little piece of this track to be really good on it as we hop on board with the very good Rowan Gill as he is chasing Morgan Burkhardt. And you think that Gill pretty savvy here? I would imagine he's just going to try and just stay with Burkhardt, maybe give him a little bump and draft every once in a while. These guys get it, and they're not going to do anything. And Patry doing a beautiful job. Had a really good lap in that first race and has settled into third, not by much. Beans Forster is on the attack, isn't it?
4-car breakaway instead of a 5-car breakaway this time through. And you're right about Gill, I think, just tucking in line, being satisfied with second. Again, these guys know how to play the game here.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those races where they're going to kind of ride in line here and take advantage of mistakes when they have them, but they're not going to push. The pass, again, if you're right on top of somebody the entire race, the pass happens on the backstretch heading into Sunset Bend. I didn't think it was going to work for Morgan Burkhardt. I thought he waited too long, but just did the crossover very, very well done. But what did Gill and Burkhardt learn is that, well, you know, I think Burkhardt really only had the opportunity to make that pass because of a mistake that Gill made, and I think Gill knows that he can't make that mistake again. So learnings from race 1 translating to race 2, I think the end of this one will look a little different.
I agree, and you know, I've often said in racing, a lot of times to me, and you know, you got to consider the draft and all those kind of things, but wow, beautiful move there. That's a double pass by the 95 of David Carrillo. That was really, really sweet. He started 24th, and he just made that move into 17th, so heck of a run by him. But what I was saying is the best defense sometimes is just a good offense. Just go. And I think there, Gill, he got caught up, and he did that little bit of a defensive move down into 17, turned in just a little bit early, thinking Burkhardt was going to pop to the inside, and Burkhardt just let him do that, went wide, and then went for that undercut, and darn near pulled it off. So, you know, that's going to be running through both of those guys' minds right now. Looks like Gill's having some connection issues, too.
Yeah, and it's been plaguing him all night. It hasn't really been a huge deal. Typically, if you see a flash here and there, it's not really going to affect much. The challenge is that if you see it kind of pick up in intensity, it means that, well, like that, for example, the server doesn't know where Gill is supposed to be because his internet connection is a little slow, and that can make you nervous as a competitor to be near that driver because their ping and their connection and service can lead to a situation where the server thinks they're in a different spot than the car actually is, and you can have kind of ghost contact that way. So Patry, he knows how to deal with this scenario, but the easiest way to deal with it is just pass him.
Yeah, well, that's always the best plan, isn't it? If you're in the midst of a thing, just get through it and clear out. He got a nice run. Both those guys didn't have great runs up front through Sunset Bend. Patry really got a nice run, and I thought he might try something here, but I think he's more concerned with just staying close. And look at that. Now they've gapped Forrester just a little bit, haven't they?
Yeah, that was a good decision, I think, by Patry. He knows that Gill's connection's been solid enough, so he's just going to take the opportunity to push Morgan forward. There's been a problem for Christian Rice Spudo. Let's go back and have a look at what happened to him. This is at the exit of Sunset Bend right here. Contact with the 29 who comes back across the road and then pow into the tires.
Yeah, that's a huge hit. And that's one of those things, you know, we talk about the bumps in 17, and if you get off of the line that you're, and I think that's what happened with the number 29 of Huffman. He got off his normal line just a little bit. That bump was a little bit where he was, a little bit more aggressive, and it cost him in terms of snapped him sideways as he was trying to get on the throttle there. And I'll tell you what, I don't know. It looks to me like every time Gill's car cuts out like that, he ends up, you know, losing a little bit of ground to Burkhardt. And I think Patry's going to be seriously thinking about, you know, the last time he had that run down into 1, we both wisely thought he didn't do anything. But I wonder if maybe he's not thinking, I just need to get through here.
More trouble in the background. Enrique Tamayo, that's the 10. He's had a problem down here. I think this is at Cunningham. Let's have a look. No, this is at 7, and just all on his own, looped it.
Oh, wow, yep, exit of the hairpin there.
And I also heard an engine explode on the downshifts there. Wasn't sure who that was, but somebody has grenaded their MX-5 motor.
As you can see now, Forrester has dropped off this lead trio by about a second, and Nicholas Rice-Spudo has put on one heck of a fight back after starting a lot farther back in the field than one would have imagined with the run that he put in. That's up 10 spots, Kyle.
Yeah, I wonder if he finished the race with a slowdown from this corner complex here. If you finish the race with a slowdown, I'm fairly certain it will give you a time penalty. so it will drop you down the order. I think that might have been what happened to Rice-Spudo. But I wanted to bring attention to Morgan Burkhardt leading this race. This race feels different, Greg. It feels like second, third, and fourth are having a much harder time sticking with the leader, and I have a feeling it's because Burkhardt actually might be a little faster than Rowan Gill, and now that he's got the advantage, he has the lead, doesn't have to pass anybody. The pace of this race is a little quicker.
That's a good point. I mean, you know, when he dropped back early in that first race, it didn't take him that long to get right back up into that lead battle. And so he knows that car is working. He's been doing a really nice job of it here. And I think you're right. You know, Gill, for all we know, he might be, you know, fighting to stay with him at this stage. Nice move there by Rickson Greedy, as he and Haran have been swapping places just a little bit. Right behind them, Skip Brock trying to figure out how can I get through on these guys.
Love this onboard, watching these drivers battle door to door here. This is a challenging sequence to stay side by side and carry speed. Brock Jr. knows that. Going to throttle up a little sooner. He's going to have a great run on both of these cars if he can just find a way through it.
Oh, he's up alongside her on there. Now what happens?
He wants to go middle three. He tried.
Yes, he does. Tried to thread it there. Not able to get it done here. He's in a good position to at least maybe complete the pass on Haran here. And then Haran just goes in really deep around the outside. Beautiful move. And Haran was able to make that stick at this stage. So they are still side by side.
Skip Brock Jr. is trying to thread a needle with a fire hose right now. He's just trying to get that car jammed in the tightest spot it can be in, and still hanging on the mirrors of the 45.
And I think behind them, Butler's going, keep it up, keep it up. I'm not that far back, guys. There he is. Hop on board with him, and they're still side by side. Finally, it settles out, and Brock able to sneak through on Haran. In the back of Haran's car, that right rear deck bent up. Looks like he's just shrugging off the contact.
Well, that fire becomes embers for a moment. Let's jump back to the lead. And you said something earlier I want to touch back on. Rowan Gill maybe fighting to stay with Burkhardt. Well, when he gets to him, he doesn't pass him, which is interesting, because I think he wants to be second, but he wants to be a close second on this final lap. I don't think he wants to be lingering this far back. 4/10 back is too far. And, you know, in front of him is not where you want to be either, because you don't want him to do the same thing that he did to you in race one and do that successfully. You want to have control, and getting the slipstream and the blast down the backstretch is really the best way to have control here.
Ooh, contact in the back. Is that Carrillo? Oh, that's a number. Well, that's Carrillo, I think. Yeah, two cars had contact. And Taylor Pocock in the 6. Oh, yes, okay.
And wow. Just got wide at the exit and into the concrete, missed the tires on board.
This is gonna smart. Looks pretty good here. Just ran wide.
Try to carry too much speed, and then right past the end of the tire bundles and into the concrete. That will likely, well, he's limping it, but that will probably be it for the car. That thing is not looking healthy.
Yeah, not at all.
And Felix Borodati has had an issue in Sunset Bend right ahead of him. Their contact
here. Those guys that have been in the battles. Let's watch for it. Yep.
931 of Levi Knupp that was involved. I thought Levi started pretty deep in this field, and indeed he did. 33rd up to 17th right now.
Incredible drive by Levi.
And Jim Friedhofer next on the chopping block here.
Yep, and I got to tell you, that graphics package,
see ya.
Just left it a little bit too late and tapped Friedhofer, and Friedhofer went for the ride.
We've had a change for the lead, by the way, Greg. Morgan Burkhardt is back to second and actually losing P2 now while we were watching all that.
He had a slowdown.
He must have. He's down a full second and a half now, and he's trying to cling to second place. We have to go back and find out where this was. A slowdown in this part of the lap is a weird place to get one. Well, he's already been passed at this stage. So was it turn one? No, you can't even get a slowdown there.
Oh, that was it.
Oh.
Was there a little tap?
Yeah, no, I definitely hit the wall on corner entry. Not right.
I mean from Gill behind, right?
No, it was the wall. He caught the wall on the way in.
was opening that angle up and went just a little bit too much, right?
Yep, and we'll get a look on board Rowan Gill here. I think he's gonna see this out the windshield right here, and it's gonna hook the rear tire. And there's some damage there as well, but Gill just turns in and leaves Burkhardt behind, and that gap is now 1.5 seconds from Gill back to Patry and Burkhardt. So with 9.5 minutes left, Patry and Burkhardt are now frenemies right now. They're working together because they have to catch Rowan Gill.
What's the phrase you like? Co-opetition?
Co-opetition. I love
like
that term.
A lot. Yeah, Skip Brock I think just laid a beautiful pass on Rick Segrini into Sunset, but he may have overshot it a bit, and here comes Rick Segrini right back at him again. And right behind them is Haran, and Butler is a little bit closer still. And we're under 9 minutes on the nose to go in this one side by side in the battle for 6 right now, heading down into 1. Brock's got the better position, but look at the moves. Rick Segrini going to try and sweep the outside.
Turn 3 is a left-hander. Oh, here comes the 45.
Rick Segrini now finally able to shut the door and hangs on to that spot now. That is for 6th. As Rice Puto has made his way up into 5th and has gapped these guys a bit. But once again, we're watching Butler. He's trimmed that margin by another second on those guys.
This is Burkhardt and Forster now.
Yeah.
So I think the 40's really got some damage that's slowing him down. Last time by, there must have been another issue because he was 3 seconds. Oh, that was the same lap though. Well, laps are extremely long here, so.
Yeah, you tend to forget that sometimes, but he's got an issue, no question.
I wonder if he knocked the camber out in the right rear, or maybe the toe out in the right rear and is making it unstable, but he's definitely dropped. And now Caleb Patry's got no help. He's got 1.3 seconds to make up on Rowan Gill with no draft assistance. If he can get within 1 second, he can draft back on Rowan Gill, but this isn't Daytona.
You know, this great battle continues too, and Forster did get through on Burkhardt, so Burkhardt back in 4th. And now up into Tower Turn. You've got to get on the throttle way before apex. You almost have to be on throttle at turn in Tower Turn. You can see in the background there, I think that may have been Gianni Morrow, who just ran a little bit wide through Tower. But there's no question that Jordan Butler is closing it up now. He's getting close enough. He's going to be a part of this scrap in short order here as we ride on board with Rick Segrini. Yeah, 9/10 of a second. You're within the draft distance. That's how far back he is from the 45, so he's within striking distance now. It might take him a few laps to utilize that draft, but I'm watching the gap now. Didn't get a great run at turn 16. It's not close enough where the draft will make up your mistakes, but it will help you if you can capitalize on it. Now, Caleb Patry has closed in a couple tenths on Rowan Gill. So maybe we're not done yet, Greg. It's going to be a lot of effort to eat up the rest of the 2 or 3 tenths he needs to really be in the draft, but he's not too far back. Yeah, I'm really intrigued here looking at the lap times. Patry just turned a 2:38.3, Forster a 2:39.9, but here's the story, Burkhardt a 2:40.6. So, I mean, he and Forster are having a good scrap here, but I don't think Burkhardt's car is that healthy. But here's the thing, you know, when you've got some serious skills, and certainly Burkhardt does, sometimes you can figure a way to drive around the problem. Woo. Oh, I think you're right. I think that right is towed out at the front because that car looks unstable under braking, and whenever it gets loaded up on a bump, it just wants to swing in any kind of a right-hander, it looks like. Yeah, that was a big moment there for the 40 car, and now playing defense here on Forster, and it's bringing Nicholas Rice-Sputo back into the mix. He could get on podium here if he passes both of these cars, and it's looking likely with this big run out of the hairpin, and he's going to get alongside Forster and then have a run at Burkhardt here in the last half of the lap. Yeah, Rice-Sputo just turned a 2:38.8, and that's quicker than anybody except Patry and Gill, so I think you're absolutely spot on, and he's really showing some speed. You're going to try and pin the outside. Opted to go with his teammate, and might just be through. on Forster. Forster forcing the issue here, and you've got to at this stage, don't you?
Yeah, you do, but tough to stay side by side through here. Forster has to hook the curb. Rice-Budo is going to drop 2 tires in the dirt, but carries good speed on exit. And now heading towards Bishop Bend. Rice-Budo's got overlap here, but you're not carrying enough speed here for that inside line. You don't have to lift in these cars. It's full throttle all the way from tower turn down to here, so Jean de Bienne. So it really, the inside line doesn't do you a lot of good there. It's not that much shorter,
no.
and if you're not lifting, you're really just going to be exactly where you were when you left tower turn.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, Bean's got a heck of a run through Le Mans. He got a great exit there, and that's where I think that may have been a little bit of a problem as Forster got up, or excuse me, Burkhardt got up on that curb, and I think that damaged right rear may have unsettled it, and Forster is through.
Beans Forster to 3rd place. Rice-Budo really wide on the entry to Sunset Bend to arc the exit. Look at the run he's got on his teammate here. Push through turn 17. Too much. They're going to be in the wall.
Ooh. He got, now maybe the other, that might even out for Burkhardt now. He's got the other side tweaked a little bit.
Is that how that works?
Unbelievable.
You hit the car on one side with a hammer, then you hit it again with the other to straighten it back out?
That's right, that's right. And that, of course, now has given Beans Forster a pretty nice little margin, and Rice-Budo sneaks through on the inside, but he might and there you can see the sliding that Burkhardt's car is doing. Oh, somebody way off in the background. That was Haran, the 45.
Yeah, he went for a big ride at the exit at turn 1. Gathered it up, though. He just lost a couple spots.
So he continues.
Mort Schmidt on pit lane. Not sure what for. Maybe penalty potentially for incidents or cutting the track at some point, but that's an unscheduled stop, obviously, in a 25-minute race.
And the back of his car looks like he's had a little bit of contact as well.
Stephen
back
Black
here
and Bowley side by side into turn 3.
They have been they scrapped in the first race, didn't they? And they're back at it again, chasing Max Schweid, the number 98 up in front. And then there's the number.
That is a lap car, I believe.
Yeah, the 12, I think.
Yep, that is Christian Rice-Budo, who we saw have issues at the exit of Le Mans curve at the very beginning of this race. Up front, Rowan Gill leads. Caleb Patry's 1 second back. We're going to be coming back to the white flag this time. So Patry, he's within striking distance in terms of the draft, but it's going to take a mistake, I think, to close the rest of the gap down.
I have a feeling you're absolutely right. Forster now back by some 7 seconds. He's got 3 seconds on Rice-Budo, and Burkhardt right behind Rice-Budo. And I'll tell you, Brock, Rixon-Greeny, Haran, and Butler are closing, and they have a shot at a top 5 here with the way Burkhardt's car is working right now. Look at this move. That is Brock down underneath. Tried to unsettle him a little bit. Rixon-Greeny trying to open the angle up in the blue car, trying to get a run. He and Brock working together now on a wounded Morgan Burkhardt.
And he just doesn't have the speed. And he's got brake lights on too. I think he's got a cut course as well. So some salt in the wound for the 40 car this race.
Yeah, bad to worse for him. And Haran's going to try and sneak through as well, and does, just because Burkhardt just couldn't get the momentum built back up again. So he's plummeting down the order here. Here comes Rixon-Greeny wanting to do the over-under.
Another little baby touch there on the rear bumper coming through turn 17. The car is so loaded up there. We saw that go south with Rice-Budo and Burkhardt. I'm happy that didn't turn into another one of those into the wall scenarios there.
Seriously, that was really close there as well here. And there is Rice-Budo. Look at this, Rixon-Greeny down to the inside. Rixon-Greeny is on Skip Brock. They're coming out side by side. Here's that little kink to the left. Now Rixon-Greeny throwing it down to the inside. Brock planting it on the outside through that little right-hand kink, and now deep into turn number 5. Oof. Goes Rixon-Greeny, and Brock says, I can work with that. And now Rixon-Greeny gets moved over, and here comes Haran.
45 jumps up to 6th place in all of that. Ooh. While this is happening, we are on the final lap, and Caleb Patry's in within half a second of Rowan Gill. It's not over yet, Greg. It's getting close.
Oh, he's closing it up a little bit, too. And again, traffic making their way up into the tricky and really important Cunningham corner.
Oh, the 174 was wide, but Patry was on exit. He carried okay speed there, though. He's within 0.4 of a second. That's almost the distance that Morgan Burkhardt was entering the back straightaway. So if he can keep this gap constant or close it and keep it there, we could have a drag race to the line again.
And there we go, exiting Tower. Here's that big, long run down into the double left of Bishop. There's the first one. Here's the second one, as you talk about, absolutely flat. Then on the brakes here for Jean de Bienne. Here's that little flick. You open it up a bit here, but you can't get it too wide there because then you can't get it back to the apex. And now, hard throttle, no! Looked like Patry may have just dropped those lefts just a little bit, Kyle.
Just a little bit. It's 0.4 of a second as they come into turn 17 for the final time. Burkhardt wasn't there when they entered turn 17, but he was on the exit. Still, Gill maintains a 0.3 of a second advantage into the final corner, Greg. Turn 17, Sunset Bend.
And Gill did not turn in as early this time. He learned his lesson from that last run. He's going to exit 17 with a nice bit of rolling exit speed, and it looks like Rowan Gill is going to win 2 in a row. This one with a bit more of a margin, but congratulations to Caleb Patry. Absolutely stellar run to second. Beans Forster looks like he's going to grab third. Here's the battle for fourth. Rice Pudo is going to get it, and Skip Brock dancing along the wall brings it home in fifth. What a run for Skip Brock.
Yeah, Skip Brock Jr. up to fifth place. Started this race in fifth, but he fell backwards at the early part of it and then drove back forward. Brennan Uran in the 45, 7th to 6th. Jordan Rickson-Graney 6th to 7th, and Morgan Burkhardt, though, you have to feel for him, Greg. He was in that battle, and the slightest mistake caught the wall on driver's right entering turn 1, and then it kind of knocked the suspension out of alignment, and then the car was never the same after that.
No, it wasn't. I mean, every time he would get up onto any kind of a curb, you could just see the car unsettle. And I noticed him, you know, a lot of weaving, unintentional weaving on the brakes as well. So that back end was definitely wanting to swap ends. He had to have some pretty quick hands on the wheel to keep that under control. And after the pit stop, Kurt Schmidt back out on track, down the order a bit, but putting on a fun little run here down through the last few corners.
Big send on Wayne Buttermore in that green and pink 73. Court makes the pass and will come out of turn 17 in 22nd place. That will be where he finishes out race number 2 tonight. So Rowan Gill sweeps both races this evening, one by a little bit more than the other. But for the first time this season, perhaps more interestingly, Morgan Burkhardt does not win a race this evening.
Yeah, he didn't win a race, and as we've seen before, normally the early part of the season, he's always been on the pole. Didn't happen here. A little bit more of a margin for Gill here, almost half a second. Then the huge gap back to Forster in third, then another 4 seconds back to Rice Pudo, who had a great climb up through the field. Great run for him, and Skip Brock a wonderful recovery drive. But I'll tell you, that battle all race long between Rice Pudo joined it, came through it, but Brock, Haran, Rickson-Graney, and Jordan Butler was just superb.
It certainly was. Here's a look at your top 10 and the results. We're going to talk to your top 3 here in this race, and we'll see if we can talk to Jordan Butler as well. Gill, Patry, Forster, Rice Pudo, Skip Brock Jr., then it was Brennan Uran, Jordan Rickson-Graney, Morgan Burkhardt, Jordan Butler, and Gianni Morrow, the rest of your top 10, Greg. And those that just missed out on top 10, Greenfield, Schweid, Boley, and more. Schweid had a bad race in race 1 and rebounded to finish 12th. If I pull up his starting spot here in this race, 27th to P12.
Yeah, we've seen a few. I mean, David Carrillo, I think, also had an absolutely superb run up through the back, and Levi Knupp as well. So, even when you're in the back, you just don't give it up. You keep going for it here, and you just love to see those drives. It may not be for any trophies or hardware or anything in these individual races, but oftentimes, and there's no doubt that the scrap we've seen at the front when you're running that close is fun. But sometimes those races where you pass 20 cars, even though you're not in a podium position, you still get out of the car and you can't wipe the grin off your face.
A lot of fun. There's a look at the rest of your order. Jamison Huffman, 35th. Caleb Pocock out with some crash damage as well. Let's talk to a couple folks before we head out of here tonight. Jordan Butler is the first on my list, finished 9th in this race, but was engaged in an incredible battle with the 45 and 32. Jordan, you got to be worn out after that one. Some great fights there in race number 2.
Yeah, I was really sweaty. Both those races were incredible. These cars are just amazing to drive here.
Well, one of the things, Jordan, it took you a long time to close in on that group of Brock, Haran, and Rick Segrini, but you had to see them absolutely going side by side, scrapping everywhere. You had to know, if I just stay with it here and I don't make mistakes, I'm going to get there.
Yeah, I know. I was watching them go, and at the start they got away, and I was like, oh no, like I'm 2.5 seconds back, like I'm just gonna be stuck here. But then they started fighting a little bit, and it gave me a chance. And I wish I just had like 2 more tenths of pace around here, or else I might have been able to get in front of these guys. But it was fun racing. It was really fun to watch. Definitely was, even though I wasn't ahead of them, I enjoyed being a spectator.
Well, and we had you eyeballed throughout, and you were just there all the time. They were able to get up and mix it up with them. One heck of a ride, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys. You guys do a great job too.
Thanks. Means a lot to hear.
All right, thanks so much, Jordan. Move on now to our 3rd place finisher in this second race of the evening, and that, of course, was Mr. Ben Beans Forster. Brings it home in P3. Kind of trailed off the battle at the front there in race number 2, but Beans, you had some great battles tonight, both in race 1 and race 2, with Burkhardt, Rice-Puto, Patry, Gill, and more. Take us through your evening.
Yeah, these cars are just absolutely insane with how close they can race with one another. So it makes for some sweaty palms throughout the entire race.
What was the issue in the second race there where you dropped off a little bit? Were you caught up in something, or was it just a lack of pace?
No, I was just I just trying to focus too much, trying to push the car too hard, and I was blowing the exits and I was blowing the braking zones into some of the corners, and I just dropped off. So I'm sorry,
Beans. You don't sound like a real race driver at all, being honest like that.
I'm a little humble.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, we appreciate it. And I got to ask you, as I'm not real familiar with you personally, where'd the Beans come from?
It's a nickname that was given to me in 3rd grade. Long time ago.
So I always wondered, because in the motorcycle racing world, one of the other phrases they use a lot is, I'm going to go out and give it the beans today. So I was wondering if that was part of it. But I'll tell you what, always a joy to call your races. I know you're maybe a little frustrated with your run today, but another podium, good points, and just fun watching you race, man.
Yeah, it was awesome. It's such a good time. I'm so excited for the rest of the season and all the other races that are going to come about in the future.
As are we, and we're sure glad you're a part of it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks to Full Sem Sims for putting this on, and thanks for Team Watson Racing who is one of the teams I race for. And thank you guys for putting on such a great show. The performance is just phenomenal.
Great. Love to hear it, and you're a big part of it, man. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Beans. We'll see you next time. Moving on now to Caleb Patry, who came home 2nd in the second race of the evening. Caleb, you had some great battles there, race 1 and race 2. A little bit trailing Rowan Gill there coming up to the white flag, but 4/10 shy. What'd you need to get by that 174 at the end?
I think I just needed another lap and a little more skill. We were pretty evenly matched. It looked like those laps I was behind him. Looked like we were pretty evenly matched. I could get him maybe the first part of the course, then he'd get me like the second half. So, but yeah, it was a good race all around.
Caleb, I don't think we've seen you in the championship in the first couple of races. Great addition, some great driving. What was the difference? Obviously, you were right up near the front in both races. What was the difference in this one that had you up battling for the win?
I mean, the first race, I didn't really qualify very well. I joined with like 10 minutes to go in the session. Oh. So those qualifying laps were my only laps I got tonight. But yeah, so that first race was just kind of just try to get to the front and just stay there. And second race was just keep my nose clean and, hopefully be at the front towards the end. And yeah, unfortunately kind of got separated from Rowan there a bit, but I just tried my best to hunt him down and I got close, but
yeah, you did.
no cigar.
Yeah, what does it do to your mindset when the guy up in front of you is having internet issues and he's popping in and out? Is that unsettling to you at all, or have you done this enough that you're used to it?
I mean, it can be a little unsettling sometimes, but I mean, yeah, after a while of it happening, you kind of get used to it. But the worst is when you're following right behind him and he blinks off and on and you don't really know where he is.
Right.
Because when he reappears, it makes it that much easier to hit him.
Yeah, I would think. Are you going to be around for the rest of the season? We sure hope.
Yeah, I think so. I unfortunately missed the first 2 weeks, but now I think I'm motivated to do the rest of them.
I sure hope so, man. You're an absolutely great addition. Just a blast to watch and to call.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks, Caleb. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Morgan Burkhardt came up short tonight for the first time this season. Did not walk out of Sebring with virtual trophies in hand. Morgan, tonight was a tough one. Race 2 especially, we saw that he had maybe picked up some damage there at the end. But I want to talk about race 1 and that run to the checkers. That was a blast. That you had to be thrilled after that. 0.004 of a second was the margin of victory. Take us through that entire last lap and that run down to turn 17.
Well, for a lot of the race, I was kind of just planning how I was going to do it. And then I kind of just decided that going into turn 17 was going to be the best way. And I screwed up the entry to the second to last section. And I was like, ooh, all right. And then he missed or went a little bit deep. And I saw a hole at the apex at Sunset. And I was like, all right, we're going to take it. And the door stayed open and just kind of drag raced to the line, but lost it by like a matter of inches.
Yeah, incredibly close. And I mean, throughout that, one of the things that we were marveling at was as you guys were that close, bounding over those bumps through there, never any contact, just absolutely incredible. And it looked like Rowan kind of feinted in. I mean, turned in a little bit earlier, maybe thinking you might do something to the inside, and that may have opened that gap up for you.
Yeah, I saw that. He went really defensive to kind of break the draft and cover up an inside launch into Sunset. And then right before the braking zone, I kind of just cut back track left to see if I can maybe open it up. And yeah, looking at the replay, there's wall and then car, and there's a car in between.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, those are the truly amazing moments when there's enough room for a car and a wall and a piece of paper between your competitor and you never touch. That to me is phenomenal racing, and you exhibited it here. Obviously race 2, you just nicked that wall going into turn 1. It looked after that like maybe that suspension got towed out a little bit, because anytime you'd brake or hit the bump, hit a curb, the car would just really look uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was. I was, setting up, trying to just kind of cracking out laps, waiting for the final few to come around, and then went into turn 1. Came kind of track right to open up the corner a little bit, and I got a screen tear, and I heard the wall hit before I saw it, and yeah, and then after that, it's just every time I turned left, the car went right, and every time I went right, the car went straight. So it was a little bit difficult. But
yeah, it looked like it. I mean, you did the best you could to recover from it. And by the way, thank you for joining the Full Send Sims instructor program here and helping out competitors that are looking for a little bit more pace. We appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I love coaching. It's one of my favorite things to do. First of all, because I kind of have a horrible addiction in this this hobby, so anywhere I can get it, I want to do it and help. I like helping out people. Because it makes me better. I mean, talking about the fundamentals of the driving and looking at other people helps me analyze my own driving and make myself better. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we sure appreciate it. Tell you what, that finish of race 1 is going to be remembered for a while here. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you guys for showing everybody.
Thanks, Morgan. We'll see you next time.
Alrighty then, see you.
Rowan Gill gets it done, wins both races tonight, but Rowan, we were just watching the tail end of race 1. What a battle coming to the checkers. That had to be a fun one for you. I know race 2, you won it by about a half a second, but I bet the heart rate was up at the tail end of race 1.
Yeah, in race 1, I wanted to see how the racing played out. I haven't really raced these cars on the sim before. I mean, I definitely have some experience racing them live, but just wanted to see how the race played out. I worked with Morgan a little bit. He gave me a few pushes, and then just coming to the line, I knew he was going to try and pass me in 17, so I just kind of slowed down a little bit just so like he couldn't get a run, and then he got up next to me and somehow I was able to pull it off by however many thousandths it was, 3 thousandths.
Yeah, I mean, it was, 4 thousandths technically, which is just incredible. And it looked like, you mentioned that you slowed down. It looked like you protected a little bit going into 17. Did you feel like, that got you to, to overrun a little bit down right when you got to that, the apex point, and that's where he was able to get the nose underneath it?
Yeah, I think so. I think he just I thought he was going to try and stuff it in there last minute, and I just kind of slowed down a little bit too much, and he kind of got half a nose in there, which got him alongside me. But yeah, I was still able to pull it off. I don't even know how. I thought he had a better run than I did, and I thought he was going to just pit me at the line just a little bit, but somehow I pulled it off.
Yeah, well, I think one, you could see that you it looked like you pinched him a little bit to try and not give him as much of a free run. And there was one point right before both you guys straightened your wheels out where it looked like he had to make a little correction because of that move on your part. So some pretty savvy racecraft there. And are we going to see you for the rest of the season? Because man, you came in here and you are part of one of the most amazing finishes I've ever called.
Yeah, I believe so. I think I'm going to try to run the rest of the season. The racing here is great, and everyone is really nice, and, series is run really good. So, yeah, I'll stick around for the rest of the season.
I love to hear it, and I'll tell you what, you guys coming through that corner, over those bumps, that close, never touching, to me, that's an absolute thing of beauty, so we look forward to calling you for the rest of the year. Kyle?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rowan. We'll see you next time. And Greg, wrapping things up here from Sebring International Raceway. What a fantastic night of racing. And last week at Daytona, I think we all kind of left going, man, we were expecting some side-by-side photo finishes. Well, we got them here at Sebring, so Florida still paid off for us. But that is our last round in Florida for the FSS Esports Spec Miata Series, because next week we head to Alabama to Barber for our 4th round.
And I'll tell you what, now we get some serious elevation, right? And it's a track designed for bikes, so it's not particularly roomy. It doesn't have the space of Sebring, and some of the corners there are just classic. I can't wait to see these cars, as I said, like the bikes do, backing it in, going down into turn 5. And the elevation changes, I think it is going to be absolutely spectacular. And unlike Sebring, or even because of Homestead or Daytona with the big bounces going on and off the banking, Barber is baby bottom smooth with lots of fun elevation. I think it's going to be a blast. I can't wait.
Certainly will be, Greg. So that's round 4 coming up next week. And then we head to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, another track, and one of my favorites in the country that's got basically all of the above: elevation, curbing, smooth track, rough track. It's everything in between. So the next 2 rounds have some really unique characters, and it's going to be a blast.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Road Atlanta is just outright insane speed as well. And the track never really goes straight for very long. And with a pack of cars like this, it's going to be spectacular. And then VIR and then Lime Rock and the Glen. I mean, it just doesn't let up at all, and we're lucky for it. So I just want to say a huge thanks once again to Full Send Sims, the title sponsor, and the folks that conceived of this great championship. Also to 3P Logistics and to Final Turn Motorsports, and of course to my buddy Kyle Heyer for joining me on the call. Thanks, bud. Always absolutely great. And folks, we will see you next Thursday as we head to Barber Motorsports Park and some elevation.